That said, our primary purpose is to entertain, and where we can entertain responsibly, obviously we try to do that. We try to have a positive impact on the world, but the first thing we need to do is entertain.
There was an in-depth piece, like a behind-the-scenes piece, talking about how they've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now.
So engulfed in controversy that even the Magic Kingdom itself couldn't save it. This isn't some obscure indie film. We're talking about Snow White, a name synonymous with fairy tale perfection. Disney poured millions into a live-action remake, expecting another box office triumph, another beloved classic reborn for a new generation. But what unfolded was far from enchanting. In a move that sent shockwaves through Hollywood, AMC, one of the largest theater chains in the world, did the unthinkable. They pulled Snow White from their screens. Not after a slow decline, not after a typical theatrical run, but swiftly, decisively citing catastrophic sales. This is the story of how a seemingly guaranteed hit became box office poison, a cautionary tale of missteps, meltdowns, and a fairy tale gone horribly wrong.
I have a clip of it.
Oh, okay, great.
Her being a retard.
Okay.
It's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White.
That laugh.
That is
not going to be saved by
You
the
wrote
prince.
it?
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
It just takes a beloved movie and makes it much more boring and much less realistic. The movie is really, really bad.
Disney's marketing machine went into overdrive, promising a fresh take on a legendary story. They cast Rachel Zegler, a rising star brimming with youthful energy, and the established glamour of Gal Gadot as the evil queen. Initial buzz was cautiously optimistic. Fans anticipated dazzling visuals and a modern spin on a timeless classic. Yet, whispers of changes to the core story began to surface. Rumors of altered character arcs, reimagined themes, and a departure from the original's beloved simplicity started to seed doubt. Skepticism grew as details trickled out. This wasn't just an update, it was a reimagining, and not everyone was ready for the fairy tale they thought they knew to be rewritten. Beneath the surface of fairy tale charm, a storm was brewing, one fueled by nostalgia and a growing sense of unease.
Our rights are on the line, folks.
Bitch! The right to buy Cosby sweaters?
Come on.
That's the face
Go
of a
vote blue.
serial killer.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Say it louder so your other eye can hear you.
So we didn't do that this time.
But the primary suffering is being sent in by my company to watch a children's movie as a single man, like 2 p.m. on a Thursday. That was the first part that was a little bit weird, but I was basically the only person in the theater.
Then came the interviews, and with them, the firestorm. Rachel Zegler, in an attempt to champion her modern Snow White, made comments that instantly ignited fan fury. Phrases like, "not going to be saved by the prince," and pronouncements that the original story was outdated, landed like a lead balloon with audiences who held the classic dear. It wasn't just about updating a story. It felt to many like a dismissal of the magic that made Snow White endure for generations. Accusations of disrespect and a lack of understanding for the source material flooded social media. The internet exploded, transforming from cautious anticipation to outright hostility. What was intended as confident promotion morphed into a PR nightmare, and this was just the beginning of the unfolding disaster.
You don't particularly see people who, look like me or are me playing roles like that. So it was definitely, when it got announced,
White!
He wasn't a stalker, by the way.
thing that was like trending on Twitter for days because all of the people were angry. And so it was like
Those people.
very much this Yes. It was this
people that we
awakening
need to educate, the people that we need to love into awareness.
love them in the right direction.
We need to no, you don't. It's not your job. Your job is to entertain. You are paid to entertain.
Very few people wanted to see this. Even the little kids who like Disney movies, even they don't seem to be turning up in droves for the movie because the movie is really, really bad.
If the online backlash was a spark, what happened next was the explosion. Disney, in a desperate attempt to regain control of the narrative, booked Rachel Zegler on The View, a daytime talk show known for its broad reach. The plan was damage control to humanize Zegler, address concerns, and gently steer the conversation back to the movie's supposed merits. But live television is unpredictable, and Rachel Zegler had her own script. Instead of sticking to sanitized talking points, she veered into political commentary, unrelated to the film, and doubled down on her controversial opinions about the original Snow White. Eyewitness accounts describe frantic gestures from producers off-camera, attempts to cut her off to pivot to salvage the segment. It was a train wreck unfolding in real time. The segment ended abruptly, cutting to a jarring commercial break, leaving viewers stunned and the internet buzzing. The cameras stopped rolling, but the real drama was just getting started, amplified by the raw, unfiltered nature of live TV.
And so I've got some bona fides here on being fair. The movie was absolutely terrible. In every way that the movie differed from the beloved 1937 original, it was worse.
Enter Joe Rogan, the podcast king, whose massive audience hangs on his every word. He dissected the Snow White fiasco in painstaking detail, and his analysis resonated deeply. Rogan framed the meltdown, as it was now universally being called, not just as a PR blunder, but as a cultural moment. He argued that it exposed a shift in audience expectations, a growing weariness of corporate messaging that felt inauthentic. He pointed out that AMC's unprecedented decision to pull the film wasn't just about bad box office numbers. It was a visible sign that Disney's usual advantages, brand loyalty, marketing muscle, star power, were no longer foolproof. The meltdown, Rogan asserted, had overshadowed everything, poisoning the well for any chance of the film's success. Rogan wasn't the only one talking. The internet was ablaze with memes, jokes, and furious opinions, all circling back to that disastrous TV appearance.
It basically, this movie was like you took the original Snow White and just put everything through this filter of liberalism. It wasn't through a filter of Japanese anime, it was through a filter of liberalism. So from the casting to the class politics, the sexual politics, the regime politics, everything about it was liberal.
Social media became a battleground. #NotMySnowWhite trended globally. Memes mocking the adaptation flooded every platform. Negative reviews piled up, not just from critics, but from everyday moviegoers who felt betrayed. Parents, the target audience for Disney fairy tales, steered their children toward other films, repelled by the controversy and the overwhelmingly negative buzz. The box office numbers on opening weekend were catastrophic, failing to meet even the most pessimistic predictions. Theater chains like AMC, who had banked on another Disney blockbuster, found themselves playing the film to near-empty auditoriums. Then came the hammer blow. AMC announced they were pulling Snow White, a move unheard of for a major Disney release. AMC pulling the plug was a shockwave through Hollywood, signaling something truly catastrophic had occurred, something beyond just a box office disappointment.
Snow White is generally understood to be a very, very white person. And in this case, they decided, no, that doesn't make any sense. So I don't think we're allowed to say that, right? I was referring to the movie as sand beige.
Panic rippled through Disney. Bob Iger, recently returned to the CEO seat, inherited a crisis of epic proportions. Damage control measures were initiated, but it was too late. The narrative was set, and it was overwhelmingly negative. Rumors of friction between Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot circulated, further fueling the perception of a production mired in conflict. Industry insiders speculated about Disney executives' anxieties, about the studio's seemingly incoherent crisis management. Questions arose about Disney's remake strategy itself. Had they grown complacent, assuming the Disney name alone was enough? How could Disney, the king of fairy tales, stumble so spectacularly? The Meltdown had exposed a deep vulnerability, a disconnect between the studio's vision and what audiences truly wanted.
It is not racist to suggest that a character who is described in the original as skin white as snow, that is literally how the character is described in the original, that's a character description in the same way that, as you mentioned, in Moana, this bizarre fixation with race shifting everything, but only in one direction by Disney, obviously is quite strange.
The Snow White saga serves as a stark cautionary tale for Hollywood. It's a brutal lesson in the power of fan backlash in the age of social media. It highlights the fragility of star image and the devastating consequences of PR missteps. More than just a box office flop, Snow White became a symbol of a studio seemingly out of touch with its audience, a victim of its own overconfidence and a runaway PR disaster. The film's legacy won't be its updated themes or fresh take. It will be the meltdown, the on-air implosion that became a meme, the unprecedented theater pull, and the chilling realization that even Disney magic has its limits. Snow White's meltdown became a stark reminder. In the age of social media, even magic can't fix a broken fairy tale. And for Hollywood, the aftershocks of this fairy tale's demise are still being felt, prompting a serious reevaluation of how studios approach remakes, stars, and the ever-fickle court of public opinion.